For 20 years, the man woke each morning carrying the same heavy addiction silently. He tried therapy, medication routines, discipline promises, yet nothing loosened the grip inside him. Each failure deepened shame, convincing him something broken lived permanently within his character. One winter evening, he met a Japanese monk who listened without advice or correction. The monk spoke about effort creating friction, and friction strengthening unwanted patterns over time. He explained quitting does not begin with force, but with understanding movement within experience. Something softened instantly, hope appeared without struggle, and the habit slowly lost authority. What if every battle against habits secretly teaches the brain they matter deeply? What if willpower feels noble, yet actually feeds cycles of tension, failure, and repetition? Western thinking frames change as conquest, requiring discipline, pressure, and constant self-surveillance. This approach turns habits into enemies, granting them psychological importance and emotional intensity. Resistance sharpens awareness around urges, making them louder, more intrusive, and harder to ignore. The mind interprets struggle as threat, activating stress systems that preserve familiar coping behaviors. Perhaps the problem was never weakness, but the strategy chosen to enforce control. Habits are not enemies but solutions the nervous system once trusted for survival itself. Every repetitive behavior began as an intelligent response to pain, uncertainty, or emotional overload. Smoking, overeating, scrolling, drinking, regulated feelings, when safer tools were unavailable or unknown then. Time changed needs, yet the behavior remained repeating long after its original purpose expired. Seeing habits this way dissolves shame, because the past self was protecting something vulnerable. When blame fades, curiosity emerges, allowing gentler inquiry instead of constant self-punishment cycles. This reframing lowers internal hostility immediately, creating space where change can occur naturally again. A Japanese monk struggled with anger that surfaced suddenly despite years of disciplined practice. Instead of suppression, he chose observation, watching sensations arise without judgment or reaction internally. He learned control fuels resistance, while awareness creates distance between impulse and identity itself. Naming the emotion shifted it from command into experience, felt within the body fully. Observation allowed anger to move complete, its cycle and exit naturally without suppression effort. When emotions are watched, they lose authority because awareness refuses identification with impulses entirely. This principle replaces control with presence, transforming struggle into quiet understanding over time gently. Cravings feel permanent, convincing the mind relief exists only through immediate action now. This illusion forms because urges flood attention, narrowing awareness around one urgent sensation. In reality, cravings rise, peak, and dissolve, following predictable biological cycles within minutes. The nervous system releases chemicals, then naturally rebalances once observation replaces reaction. Seeing this pattern breaks identification, separating the watcher from the experience itself. You are not the craving but the awareness, noticing sensations, thoughts, and impulses pass. This identity shift weakens urgency, allowing patience where compulsion once dominated behavior quietly. A smoker keeps cigarettes nearby, removing drama, secrecy, and artificial rules around temptation daily. He sets a 10-minute timer, committing to observe urges without distraction, resistance patiently. During waiting, he notices bodily sensations. Thoughts, images, rise, crest, then slowly fade away. The urge behaves like a wave, gaining strength, then losing form without action, eventually. Research shows cravings typically peak between 3 and 5 minutes, before declining naturally afterward. Awareness dissolves urgency because attention remains open instead of collapsing into compulsion patterns repeatedly. No willpower story appears, only quiet learning that urges cannot command behavior permanently anymore. Kaizen rejects dramatic overhauls, favoring incremental shifts that the nervous system accepts calmly, consistently. Western change models demand total transformation, triggering fear resistance and eventual relapse cycles often. Small reductions bypass internal alarms, allowing habits to loosen without rebellion pressure, gradually, safely. A 1% improvement feels harmless, yet compounds quietly, reshaping behavior over time steadily. The brain resists sudden change but cooperates when adjustments remain nearly invisible to awareness. Kaizen reframes progress as consistency, not intensity, protecting motivation from burnout extremes over time. This approach dissolves all-or-nothing thinking, replacing pressure with patience, trust, and stability. Shopping addiction becomes manageable when decisions slow gently before purchase impulses fully activate inside. Instead of banning buying entirely, one-day waiting rules create space for reflection calmly. The pause initially lasts 24 hours, reducing urgency without triggering deprivation alarms internally. Over weeks, the waiting period extends naturally as confidence grows without self-punishment cycles. This method works because the nervous system feels safe rather than threatened emotionally, internally. No rebellion appears because nothing is forbidden, only delayed slightly without internal conflict reactions. Change unfolds quietly, supported by trust instead of force or shame-based motivation patterns. Habits persist because they fulfill unmet emotional needs beneath conscious awareness levels. Removing behavior alone leaves emptiness, causing discomfort. The mind rushes to escape quickly. This vacuum often pulls people back into old patterns, despite sincere intentions and effort. Ikigai teaches meaning must replace habits by addressing the need originally served. You do not replace habits but restore balance where fulfillment was missing before. Understanding the need reveals whether connection, purpose, rest, or expression was lacking internally. When meaning enters, the habit loses relevance and gradually releases its hold naturally. One man replaced nightly alcohol with a deliberate transition ritual marking workday completion gently. He brewed tea, changed clothes, and sketched quietly, allowing emotions to settle naturally. The ritual met the same need for release, comfort, and identity without numbing substances. This was not substitution, but alignment with values the habit originally attempted to serve. Meaningful rituals regulate emotions through presence rather than avoidance or stimulation cycles. When behavior aligns with values, the nervous system relaxes, reducing compulsive seeking automatically. Change succeeds because identity feels honored rather than deprived of comfort or expression. Western approaches rely on shame, believing harshness motivates improvement and discipline effectively. Shame creates inner conflict, triggering rebellion avoidance and eventual relapse patterns repeatedly. Each failure reinforces identity wounds. Convincing change requires punishment rather than understanding internally. The Japanese approach emphasizes kind observation, curiosity, and gentle correction without condemnation. Self-compassion keeps the nervous system regulated, allowing learning instead of defensive reactions. You cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love or respect. When kindness replaces shame, progress becomes sustainable because growth feels safe emotionally. Habits resemble paths in a forest formed through repeated passage over time quietly together. Old paths fade when unused, while new roots strengthen with consistent walking slowly forward. This mirrors neuroscience, where repeated actions strengthen neural circuits through reinforcement over time naturally. Neglected behaviors weaken connections as the brain reallocates energy elsewhere gradually over long periods. Change requires patience, trusting biology rather than dramatic destruction of familiar routines to endure. You do not erase habits, but allow them to dissolve without use over time. New routines grow stronger simply by being chosen repeatedly with ease and calm consistency. Phone addiction eased when one page of reading replaced scrolling without resistance daily habit. There was no rule, no ban, no pressure, just an invitation to read briefly. One page felt harmless, yet often expanded into 30 minutes naturally over time daily. Ease allowed curiosity to lead behavior rather than force guilt or restriction cycles patterns. Satisfaction arrived through engagement, making the old habit feel unnecessary gradually over time naturally. This example shows how gentle starts often produce lasting change without struggle internally, sustainably. When effort softens, consistency grows, and new routines establish themselves quietly over long periods. You are not at war with yourself. Change emerges through understanding, alignment, and patience. Habits act as teachers, revealing unmet needs, values, conflicts, and directions, needing attention gently. When you listen instead of conquer, lessons appear without resistance, shame, or exhaustion cycles. Alignment replaces conquest, allowing behavior to reorganize naturally around meaning and coherence over time. The habit was never your enemy, it pointed toward misalignment within identity all along. Gentle awareness, steady practice, and purpose gradually restore balance without force or struggle fear. Change completes when who you are and how you live finally agree within alignment.